Here we have a better done reboot of Vacation.
Those were up, and they did.
Or smarts, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for a comedy film from the 2010s. It was one I had watched last week, around last Tuesday on Netflix, and it's one that came out in 2013. I didn't really see this one until recently. And that film is going to be for none other than 2013's We're the Millers. So, what's the plot of this film? Well, after being robbed of a week's take, small-time pot dealer David is forced by his boss to go to Mexico to pick up a load of marijuana. In order to improve his odds of making it past the border, David asks the broke stripper Rose and two local teenagers to join him and pretend they're on a family holiday. Yeah. So how's this movie made? Well, development of this movie first began in 2002. Steve Buscemi, Will Arnett, and Jason Bateman were all attached at one point to play David Clark, and Peter Cattaneo was signed on to direct at one point. Bruce Sears and eventual rewriters Sean Anders and John Morse were considered to direct. Then in April 2012, various sources broke the news that Jenna Rass and Jason Sudeikis were in talks to star in the film. Then Emma Roberts, Will Poulter, Ed Helms, and Catherine Hahn were added in July. When it began filming the movie, production began at Wellington, North Carolina on July 23, 2012, and filming also took place in New Mexico. It was presented at the 2013 Traverse City Film Festival, and the film was released on August 7, 2013 by New Line Cinema through Warner Bros. Pictures, after the film was shot and marketed. And when it came to the reactions, it got mixed reviews from critics. But despite the mixed reviews, the film was still a box office success because it grossed over $270 million worldwide against a $37 million budget during its theatrical run. And for accolades, it was nominated for 4 People's Choice Awards and 6 MTV Movie Awards, winning 2. Now as for my reaction to this movie, well, I remember seeing the trailers for this movie during the year of 2013, and I thought it looked meh, so I never actually saw it back then. However, I finally watched it last week, and now I will say this. I actually ended up enjoying this movie when I watched it on Netflix last Tuesday. I'm going to go on to say it's one of the best comedies ever made. It's a good comedy movie at best, and honestly, this would feel like a better reboot of the Vacation series than from what I've heard of how bad a 2015 film apparently was. This movie literally plays like a Fairly Brothers comedy, only it doesn't live and die by its jokes. There are some situational jokes involving awkward sexual situations, nudity and comedic violence, but what's more funny is the relationship dynamic between this family. It's not a gold mine of comedy by any means, but it did the job it told us it would do. Make us laugh and give us a fun ride. They really brought together this dysfunctional family, did it in a way that allows some suspension of disbelief in the film. A lot of comedies nowadays, especially the ones we get today, have those hit or miss scenes when you either laugh or you just can't suspend your disbelief and you're sitting there like, really? Really? This vulgar joke is going to happen? Or like every movie now? We're the Millers is pretty much a compilation of those kind of scenes that just hit the right tone to pull it off as funny, clever, and it just kind of grows on you. The family we see on screen for most of the surprisingly high-worn 9-minute runtime is in a lot of ways funny, in some ways disgusting, and in a few ways charming. The film just works with the pairings of Dacus and Aston, as we saw for a tiny bit in Horrible Bosses, which came out 2 years before this, which is another one of the best comedies of the 2010s, or one of the better comedies of the 2010s. Chances are, if you've liked films such as like Wedding Crashers or Hot Tub Time Machine, which I've never seen Hot Tub Time Machine, but I have seen Wedding Crashers, and I think it's averagely good. at best. But chances are then you'll like this one, if you've liked those films. It was written by the 4 screenwriters who've worked on those films. The 2 pairs of writers who have a history with comedy throw some subtle humor in the dialogue, which you probably won't get if you're not paying enough attention, which allows for every comedy lover's dream, to be laughing out loud. Then hearing an ever so subtle joke causing you to laugh harder, then hearing another one and another and another. The film was actually consistently funny in a sense to when it got to me, and it really did get to me in a lot of scenes. Like, the film is hilarious and it doesn't stop having good jokes, and especially because of the script written by Bob Fisher, Steve Faber, Sean Anders, and John Morris, they do a great job keeping the script funny and raunchy. And yet there are parts of the film where the script has a sense of too many cooks in the kitchen. There are a couple of scenes that are over the top, but the writers do all great, giving the actors a chance to show what they can do with the parts they were written. And honestly, I feel like all the actors really do have great chemistry with one another. This one, and I guess, but yeah, you could tell they enjoyed working on this film. And from an acting standpoint, this is mostly as Jason Sudeikis' show. Sudeikis gives this great character arc of David as his drug dealer who lives only for herself, but it turns to a guy who proves that he cares about others. And his story arc pretty much begins after he gets mugged of this drug supply that he's supposed to give to his boss, and then he's assigned to go get more marijuana from New Mexico by that very same boss. And finds out that it's hard to get across the Mexican border if you're traveling alone and ever trying to hide drugs. So he has to have 3 people that live near him, pose as his family, so that he can get away with smuggling the drugs and not get searched. Then else, for the other performances, we also have Jennifer Aniston as Ride as Rose, the stripper with a heart of gold who learns from others about how to care for other people. Then you have also, surprisingly, the most surprising one of all of them, Will Poulter, who is actually hilarious as Kenny, and this good kid that needs guidance. And you also got Emma Roberts, who's this runaway teen who also needs guidance from others. Usually who's kind of this little coin mugger, in a way, and Kenny, on the other hand, is just this kind of nerd that just lives next to David and kind of gets all, and not really like so-called lowlife per se, just kind of a neglected teenager whose parents are usually never home. And are often quick to say the right thing to make the Miller situation work in their favor. And then also you got Elle Helms, who's sometimes he's known to have played jerks, and actually plays a blackmailing boss that Dave has to get the drugs for. And then for other actors, you got Nick Offerman and Catherine Hahn are also found a bit over the top in their roles as this couple who the Millers run into on the way back home. And of course, no good comedy can be done without a good dialogue and acting. And We're the Millers definitely is the best when it comes to these things, but it's certainly built for the fun adventure to be had. Sudeikis, for once, plays a character who is not a complete idiot or pervert, as he's known for playing in other roles. I guess it's the time limit that David has keeping him grounded, and the predictable story forcing him to be a little more balanced and less stupid. Roberts is actually enjoyable as well, who actually brings some extra insults. And although the characters for me, easily Poulter and Aniston got me laughing the hardest in this movie. Poulter's character Kenny is pretty much Urkel. He's kind of this geeky, innocent, big-hearted guy neighbor who's pretty much qualifies counter the selfishness of the other 3. Some may find this annoying, but this good kind of attitude kind of keeps the comedy balanced, and adopting as Kenny's experiences, and in some cases inexperience, leads to the family having to shove their morals aside and do something funny to save the day. Kenny also has his few embarrassing moments that will kind of speak to geeks and 90s comedy film fans that have tears rolling down their eyes. And Aniston also is just as good and always does using talents to create a believable and often lovable character. The actress actually uses her body, words, or reactions to drive every scene, often seemingly showing causing the equal most laughs for me. Her ability to use sarcasm is also fantastic, and the way she slings her curses sparingly and well timed to get the most laughs and not be annoying. The awkward moments that I do mention often involve her in some way, and her character does a great job adapting to the situation, while still requiring assistance to help her out. And of course, alone these characters are good, but together they really shine, and when combined with the extras, makes it this fun, crude adventure. As for the cursing, well, usually the cursing's well done here. And Where the Miller's dialogue is usually full of many F-bombs and stuff, but it's not solely the foul mouth slang throughout most of the film, though. This story is even fraught with any number of comical misadventures, as David is unlikely trope encounter armed to the teeth bad guys and his other family, which is Offerman and Han's characters, and an equally obscenous RV along the way. And the jokes are crude, some parts are stupid and far-fetched, but this is a comedy, it's meant to make you laugh, and it really does. What separates Where the Millers from so many other recent studio-manufactured comedies is the sharpness of the writing and the appealing nature of the characters, and the script maintains a diet balance between subtle wit and balanced slapstick, modern-day crudity, and old-fashioned sweetness. And even in those rare moments when the movie jumps the track, it's quick to climb right back and head on to its destination. And much of the credit of this movie's success goes to the actors who create tremendously likable characters in their scenes. With their own comic quirks and eccentricities, but all released to some extent even in real life. And the real scene stealer of this movie, without a doubt, was definitely Will Poulter's character. Whose spine portrayals this lovable nerve actually serves as not only the best laughs of the film, but also the beating heart of the film. And guys, this is coming from somebody who's not too big of a fan of Poulter's roles, because just most of his roles, a lot of the characters I've seen Will Poulter play are often either irritating assholes at best. The biggest examples being The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and that horror film Midsummer. And I know, and yeah, we all know he recently played Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and he was one of my weakest aspects of Volume 3. He just was not, Adam Warlock was just not needed in that film. But this was no doubt his best role. Definitely the funniest character of the movie, and he steals the show in almost all the scenes he's in. And especially, there's one specific scene involving him that I won't mention too much of, but it involves him at a tarantula. Or how about the learning to kiss scene, or how about just the whole hostage scene, and Aniston's character has to pretty much pull off her stripper moves to distract the bad guys, and even Kenny's literally and since they're not a real family, Kenny's literally attracted to her moves and stuff, because, well, guys, they have to pretend to be a family. They're not a real family, guys, so Kenny's, attracted. And of course, David smacks him in the head. It's pretty much tries to get him to stop, because they still have to pretend to be an actual family to stop. And the script flirts with subtle humor, but not getting too far. The offbeat dialogue and wicked sense of humor doesn't run out of steam. It made me laugh on how screwed up a fake family, which turns out to be drug smugglers. The film doesn't take the serious issue of the crime. It is, but instead it's masked with deliberate sarcasm for the sake of getting even willing to cope. And usually my big concern with any family movie is the family parts. Because usually in a lot of bad family movies, they try to force in suckery, heartfelt moments in films where they soon overly cliched realize how much they love and need their family, loved ones, or whatever, but sometimes it works, sometimes it just really does not, especially if the character is an unlikable one. So I was worried about finding that sort of sugary sap in Where the Millers, where David pretty much realizes how much better he feels when he drops the loner bit and starts to access these methods are truly his family. And well, yeah, that does sort of happen here, but it doesn't shove your nose in it. It happens in small doses, and it usually comes with some raunchy humor to soften the blow and remind you that this is still a film about drug smuggling, and there's still a stripper in here. Aside from a fine monologue moment from Sudeikis around the movie's climax, it's never really too much. Each of the four main characters has a defiancy issue and have the reasons to embrace their situation. David's a drug dealer and a bit of a loser. He's reminded of the fact that when he sees an old college buddy in the beginning of the movie who became a family man, Rose is a stripper, but it's obviously not what she wants to be and is literally facing an eviction notice. Casey, Emma Roberts' character, is a runaway who often kind of lives on the streets somehow has an iPhone and lives on the streets. An iPhone somehow that works despite the fact that we never see why it really works because, well, she doesn't really have much of a home. and usually kind of just steals coins. And Kenny's just been home alone since his mom went out for a drink with friends 2 weeks ago and she's never returned. So he pretty much lives all by himself. So the seeds are all there for the finale. We all expect it, but it's nice to see it all, though it's all thought out better than expected from a drug comedy. Miller's doesn't completely steer clear away of cliche territory, though. And it does sometimes play a bit of a homophobia for a few laughs, but it doesn't giggle at dirty humor that exploits R rating in a way that seems like so many bad comedies seem to love doing. The story acknowledges its outlandish premise early on, and it just has fun with it, calling upon techniques used in road trip comedies, drug comedies, dysfunctional family comedies, and more. And it's the idea of taking old tropes and building them into something more unique. And actors all really fit their parts. Aniston's move towards raunchier film styles are playing its type, which pretty much begun with Horrible Bosses. Though Miller's exploits her for her sex appeal, she gets moments of ownership in the script, which doesn't paint her to a stereotype of a stripper character. Sudeikis does his thing, does it well with a bit more license, he utilizes his different strengths, and Roberts does a good job of changing perception of her character throughout the film, who usually sucks more than the others at the beginning, while Poulter is both lovable and hilarious as the clueless Kenny, and talents that are unusual and different like his can really take a typical comedy up a notch, and he certainly adds something to this movie. And Nick Offerman and Katherine Hahn also provide top-notch supporting characters as this fellow RV couple. Despite their illegal purpose and somewhat self-centered motivations, it's pretty impressive how easy it is to like the Millers as a family. Not to mention the film as a whole. The script does this great job of clearly showing how all four of them desire something good in their lives. They each demonstrate a desire to live better lives and be better people, and that helps make things interesting when they're thrown into your typical raunchy comedy tumult. Now, despite the good stuff I've said about the movie, though, I do have some issues with it as to why the movie's not perfect. For one, I just honestly think the character Brad is played by Ed Helms. It's just not that great or interesting of an antagonist. Because I just don't really find Ed Helms to be villain material, per se. And plus, Brad as a character doesn't even actually play a huge role. And the other villain, Pablo, I felt he was just there to be there. It's like with this scenario, just there because the story felt like it needed an antagonist, and a twist that the boss obviously was never going to pay David all. Like, guys, I saw that twist coming. And this story is, and the story, of course, is very cliched because we've seen comedies like this done many times. So it's not a shock how it's all going to turn out. And I also feel like Casey's just not given much to do most of the time except just be the crabby runaway of the group most of the film. Does get a few scenes revolving around her character, but that's about it. And the ending did feel a little bit anticlimactic because at first we do get this funny scene where after Kenny's bitten by the tarantula, he gets a severe allergic reaction to the bites on a certain area. The Millers have to head to the hospital, and this setback further delays the delivery of the drugs, but David renegotiates with Gerlander for a fee of $500,000 on the condition that he arrives at night. When Kenny is finally released from the hospital, David rushes him to the RV in a wheelchair and accidentally tips him over. In the ensuing argument, David inadvertently reveals how much he's getting paid, in comparison to how little he offered to pay each of the others, and Casey, Rose, and Kenny are disgusted by the revelation, and David leaves them at the local carnival. And after a young man named Scotty P gets fresh with Casey, Rose knocks him down because Scotty P's pretty much met at this RV place. Actually met at the hospital when they're dropping Kenny off at the hospital for a bit. And they find out this Scotty guy's an asshole. So there is definitely that. But shortly after David leaves, he regrets abandoning his companions and returns, and with no other way out, they reluctantly agree to join him. And on their way to the RV, though, One Eye discovers them and is about to shoot them, but Dunn comes out of his camper and subdues them, and Chuggleman comes out around the corner and Melissa held at gunpoint and is about to kill them all, but then gets momentarily distracted by the 4th of July fireworks because this is set around 4th of July weekend, and David and Kenny subdue him. Kenny kisses Melissa and prompts David to kiss Rose as well, and Donna runs to check on, and he did find out about their drug scheme during this whole scene, but he decides to let the Millers leave because they saved Melissa. It's like, drug smuggling, you seem like good people, but I'm still gonna have to take you in after I kiss my wife. And but he pretty much doesn't even bother to make it quick. So he pretty much just telling him to leave. So it's his way of telling him to leave. And then David delivers the drugs to Brad, but then Brad decides you didn't get it on time, so sorry. And then David was like, you weren't gonna pay me. You never were. But we could call it even. But then the DEA agents arrest Girdlinger because David actually tipped Dawn off to him before, likely during that scene as well. So, and he pretty much delivers this line that Brad keeps giving David. David, like, where thinks he keeps pulling off a dick move. So David pretty much says, yeah, I turned you over. It was kind of a dick move. And then Dawn tells David that he and any witnesses are going to have to remain in witness protection until the trial of Girdlinger and Shotgun. And the Millers are then seen together at a suburban house, happily living together in witness protection before the trial of Brad and sentence of Brad can be over. And several marijuana plants are growing in the garden. And that's how the film ends. Another thing I should mention, even though this is not really bad quality, but there was going to be a sequel to this movie because of the film's box office hit, but it never got made. And then it was revealed altogether it got scrapped. And honestly, I'm glad this didn't get a sequel, because this movie doesn't even need a sequel. Just look at The Hangover, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, Horrible Bosses, and Ted. I'm glad it didn't get a sequel because it probably would have been a shitty sequel that retcons everything. Or just makes the characters worse like the Hangover sequels did to Alan. Or just be different concepts with different characters like every Home Alone sequel after Home Alone 2 was. Be a sequel that retcons everything like Horrible Bosses or Ted. Be like those sequels. So it's just a good thing I never got one to begin with. However, those problems don't ruin the movie for me, and I still think We're the Millers is a good comedy for the 2010s. In the end, We're the Millers is worth a watch and buy for comedy fans and fans of drug road trip comedies in general, and those that would like a better attempt at a reboot of the National Lampoon's Vacation series than what they got in 2015. Anyways, that's it for my review of We're the Millers, and where I'm going to rank We're the Millers, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you like drug road trip comedies and want to throw back to the Vacation series, then I highly recommend watching and buying this movie for sure, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank We're the Millers, I'm going to give We're the Millers an 8 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for We're the Millers. And so our next film that we're going to review is actually going to be a film from the 80s. And this one... oh, this is one of my favorite films of 1984. So this is going to be an epic movie review. It's about a kid who gets bullied and learns karate to defend off his tormentors and get payback on them. Yeah, that film's next. I think you know what I'm talking about. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.